Welcome to the Co-Authoring Chronicles podcast, two voices, one tale.
Hello, everyone. I'm Helen Corvis, author, and I'm having a wonderful time today.
That is great. Helen, this is Steaphan, and I am an author, and we are co-authors, and I am also doing great.
Wonderful. That's a great way to start the day. I'm swell too. Okay, so today's episode is actually, this is a good intro because I wanted to talk about how important it is to keep the joy in your writing. And you had pointed out that there's a lot of really well-established famous authors who have a lot of things on this topic. So today's episode is writing tips from Seuss, Hemingway, and King.
Mm-hmm. And maybe some bonus ones.
Excellent. So, as we all know, anytime you're in a protracted stint of writing, or when you've really settled in and you just got to keep grinding and grinding, or maybe that's what it feels like, there's always time to step back and remember that this is something you want to pursue for any duration of time. And you really got to take a moment to think about how you're preserving the joy in your craft. I understand that there's always this sentiment that it's a job and you're here to, go day in, day out and be consistent, but there's nothing that says you can't also enjoy yourself. I really think that would be the better way to go.
Yeah. This could be a whole other episode, so I'll make it quick, but there's voices out there that say, well, if you ever are a writer and then time where you don't have fun or you don't actually enjoy the writing, maybe you shouldn't be writing. I don't subscribe to that theory because there's lots of things and elements of life, ingredients that make us who we are and make us tick and drive motivation. So there's always going to be times where writing may not be easy, or maybe you don't even want to do it. That doesn't mean that you've lost the joy of writing completely, or you shouldn't be an author. It just means that stuff happens in life.
That's right. And actually, to kind of tie into that, part of your job is also to make your job enjoyable at times, right? Nobody
Mhm.
says it has to be terrible. We have agency. So that's kind of the heart of this episode. So hopefully it gives some inspiration. So I thought maybe the first thing to remember, and and it's important, is to celebrate your accomplishments, because no one else is going to necessarily do this for you. And the things you do are great. They may be small, they may be large, but you have to remember that you're the one who's responsible in many times for acknowledging the work that you've done and how good it is, or what you've accomplished.
Whether you're an author that puts out a title, publishes a book a month, and there's some that do more than that, or you're someone that takes a year or two for one book, doesn't mean that you don't have accomplishments. Quantity does equate to accomplishments. So you have to define what those things are. Did you get your 500 words in? Did you get 1,000 words in? Did you get your draft done? Did you find some character arcs or create some character arcs, or one, and celebrate those things? What goes along with celebration is reward sometimes. As authors, sometimes we need to reward ourselves. Could be whatever makes you happy. But the main thing is celebrate your accomplishments, rejuvenate. And that's what Hemingway said. He said, relax. He said, rejuvenate your writing spirit. And relaxation can come from those reward mechanisms that you build in for yourself as well.
Exactly. Think of it as part of a recovery cycle, or as I read once, the cycle of the breath. When you inhale, take a moment, you have to exhale. So all good things in the spirit of writing. All right. The second thing I think that's important is to remember that you had a choice. And writing is something that you chose. There's a reason you sat down and did this, and maybe it wasn't intentional as this tip makes it sound. But the reality is we can make choices, and we chose to write. And there's a reason why we chose to write, and I think it's important to recall it's not something that somebody forced on you. And maybe you're doing it because there's, economic pressures, but I'd like to think there's a lot of choices you could have done or picked or chosen that you went this way. And you can be inspired by that. Remember why you did that.
That's very important. We've said often, not to be a downer, but being a beginning author is not an easy road. It's a lot of work, sometimes doesn't pay well. And so yeah, it is very important to find what originally inspired you and what currently inspires you to keep doing this. Not to say just because you were once inspired means that you have to be for the rest of your life. Again, life changes, things change, your inspirations may change. But if you had an overwhelming, overpowering desire to write and be an author, remember that, remind yourself. A little bit tangential to that, Virginia Woolf said observing strangers for inspiration can help when in the actual act of creating uh, creative works and writing to help create realistic, engaging characters, but also look at your own life. Is there things about your life that inspire you to write? Often we incorporate pieces of our own lives in our writing, and that might be something that drives you.
hmm Yeah, I do think you can find inspiration from the day to day or your own life, whether you realize it or not, right? Maybe there's a problem you can't deal with, but you can slay that dragon in your writing. Maybe there's a person who disturbs you and you can transform them in your work. There's a lot out there for you. And I think in some ways writing is a really lovely way to kind of navigate or deal or manage with these things. But call it inspiration. This next tip was probably the biggest one for me lately, and it goes like this, and it's something I had to learn in the course of co-authoring as well. But that is keep your initial work a safe space for your own voice. And in co-authoring, it's a little more obvious. Like the first few times I would write something, I'd probably review it like several times. I'd pre-edit it. I'd post-edit it before Steaphan ever looked at it because in some ways I was worried what he would say. But then I found even when I was writing on my own, I was the one kind of bringing this extra critical voice to my own writing, and my progress was slow. And recently I thought, "Hey, I'm gonna relax. I'm just going to let myself, why be mean to myself in this first work, right? Let's just chill a little bit, write what I want, see where it goes, let it flow. Like I said, make it a safe space for your voice and for your imagination." And man, I was really thrilled at the results.
Hmm. Yeah, we put ourselves out there when we write for sure. And whether you write about components of your own life or main characters, aspects of you or whatever, even if you didn't do any of that, writing in itself is putting yourself out there. You're basically saying, I did this thing. I think it's good. I hope you all be thousands and thousands of readers. I'm putting this out in the world. It's it's a fair amount of pressure. So you have to embrace yourself, as you said, and make it okay. Whatever you put out is okay because it's you and you're okay. And Hemingway said, anyways, that the first draft of everything is poo. I'm replacing the word he said. So don't judge. Don't be judgy on yourself when you're writing, especially that first draft, uh, because it's like a lump of clay, and you just put the basic shape in it, and you will refine it. And even at the end of all of that, it's your writing, and it's a part of you. Accept you, and push aside everything else. You're gonna have readers that like your work, and you're gonna have readers that don't like it. You're not gonna have everyone everywhere like your work.
Yeah, and I think this is also a good recommendation. It's for a way to live your life, to be honest, right? Like I said, make your work a safe space for you, but also remember when you read other people's work, it's the same experience for them. I remember when, um, like, just to go somewhat controversial, right? There have been a few works of fiction that have been published that were based off of like fan fiction, right? Which is work that's been not necessarily derivative, but heavily inspired by others, or other universes or fandoms. And a couple of examples of those would be like the Twilight books or 50 Shades of Grey. And it was very easy to stand there and be like, oh, that wasn't really very good writing, right? It was just, something that somebody did for fun and put it out there. But I also like to remember, if you yourself haven't published a book, if you yourself have not been able to get that far, maybe consider what you're saying about somebody who actually has done it. You know, this is glass houses, man.
Yeah, for sure.
The other thing that I think is a good writing tip is it's keep journaling or just writing on the side. You may have a serious effort going on, but if that is sometimes, you're having trouble finding joy there, remember to just keep in practice on the side. I'd actually do a daily journal, and my daily journal is unstructured, it's just free flow thought, and it's in some ways just getting used to writing and having words flow out of the pencil or the pen. I personally use a pen because I don't go back and edit anything in my journal. It's there, I write it, and it's good, and it's what it is. And that, in some ways, I think helps me remember that same sensation when I'm trying to write for our shared project.
This all ties in, the journaling with inspiration, remembering why you chose it, it all ties into kind of the journaling or basically doing what's fun for you as well. Um, doing things that are ancillary to why you write. So they support the writing. This could be journaling, as you said. It could be participating in writing prompts. There's tons of writing prompts published in social communities and writing magazines. You could do things, maybe you might find some fun in changing your whole writing style, changing from your normal POV. You always write third person, you want to write first person. One of the ancillary things I do is I like to have art back what I'm writing. I like to see the visuals for some of the things, though I don't create graphic novels, but I still have illustrations for um, the things that we write together in some of my other work. So that's a fun thing for me that kind of feeds the life cycle of creativity in my writing. And then Dr. Seuss always used to stress the importance of humor and even nonsense to spur creativity. And I believe in that. It pushes your mind outside of its normal, comfortable boundaries. Alongside with that is when we talk about journaling, that's kind of letting us do our free flow of our mind, whether it's art or writing prompts. But the other aspect that also spurs our creativity and expands our minds creatively is reading other works, reading other authors, reading sometimes maybe even genres that you don't normally read. But reading is very important. Stephen King has famously said multiple variations of, if you don't have time to read, then you don't have the tools to write.
Mm. What I love most about reading is, I think I've said this before in previous podcasts, that I love interesting words. And to me, reading is like the best way to learn those words or to broaden my vocabulary. I wish I could remember the last word I learned, because every once in a while I'll stop and look something up and look at all the different meanings of the word. But the other day, one that popped up was gorge, the Gorge, gorge.
Mhm,
And traditionally, what a lot of people find it in reference to is, some kind of, what is it, like a giant, like hole in the ground.
mhm,
Um, and it's kind of a geographic formation. But
mhm,
where I'm more familiar with the word gorge is actually as an older way to refer to your throat. And
mhm,
I had remember reading it in a book once where some character had seen something happening and it disgusted them so much that they felt like throwing up. But
mhm,
instead of writing that, what they said was she felt her gorge rising.
mhm.
Yes, is another phrase, right? To indicate that action. And so That's one of my favorite things because it's fun. It's fun to read other people's work, and to me, it's like the best way to also grow my vocabulary. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. Gotta have the fun. It's the fun. It's like I said, ton of work doing this. And there's a lot of things, especially for new authors, that some would see as demoralizing or bringing your passion down, or, and these things are what keep us going
Yeah, that's right.
and what keeps you going.
Embrace the joy.
Yes. All right. Well, did you have any other points you wanted to bring up before we call it an episode?
No, I really don't.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening today, and we hope you tune in and listen to our next coming episode. Talk to you later. Bye.